Hello, welcome again to my channel. Gabriel here from Gabrielta, and today I want us to talk about two things. Should you invest in real estate or in stock exchange? I think that's a broad topic, but we can break it down. So how do we do that? Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and then we have this conversation. Stick around. So when we have this conversation about stocks versus real estate, it purely depends with your personality types, the risks that you want to take, and so much more. But the ideal bit is that you have to understand that these things are completely different, and sometimes they cannot compete because of what they offer. For example, you cannot compare buying stocks versus owning a piece of land next to the California beach. Those are two conversations that you don't want to have with someone who's very much advantaged on that. And at the same time, if you look at stocks, you cannot compare real estate with someone who owns shares with, let's say, Fly Emirates or DHL or some of the most global corporate industries. Everyone has different advantages depending on what they are willing to risk and the processes involved. But the ideal point is you have to know that most of us have been brought up in a concept that you know more of real estate than stock market. So this is a conversation to sort of compare the two and what can you consider going for depending on, of course, what you can afford, the risks that you want to take, what's your personality type, and also what is very much available to you and what is the current performance of both industries in the world. So let me try to put it in a simpler context. When you buy stocks, you buy a piece of a company. When you buy real estate, you buy a building or a place where the company can be built on. So that is the simplest context they can put. The idea is if you buy, for example, if you buy your shares, let's say 100 shares in a company, and then the company grows, then your shares also keep growing. I mean, your value of your shares keep growing as the company grows. If you buy a piece of land or a building, and then the area starts being much developed, then the value of your land also keeps growing and increasing. So clearly, this means these are two things that are very much competing, and we need to put them in a perspective, in an equilibrium, look at them and challenge you. What can you go for? This is an interesting conversation. Personally, I would want to look at it in the pros and cons. What are the advantages of buying real estate and also the disadvantages involved? At the same time, with real estate, with stock market, what are the advantages of the stock market vis-a-vis the disadvantages of the same? I would start with real estate, the advantages of buying in real estate. I think it's one of the most comfortable market that you can consider because we have grown seeing this happening from where we work, where we live, our places of leisure, travel, and other destinations. We have grown learning more about real estate, so therefore most people are more comfortable into real estate. It's advantageous in the context that when you're comfortable doing a certain thing, investing in this, then it puts you at a place where you feel you're happy and you're towards the success journey that you want to walk along. The other thing about real estate is that it's more safer compared to the stock market, because with real estate, when you have your property somewhere, you have almost the entire management under your own hands. You rely on your own effort, you rely on your own gut, you rely on your own system implementation on how it's going to happen. For example, if you have like an apartment and people are living in and you have tenants, they're paying you rent, etc. and other things, then at that point you have the upper hand because you manage the entire system on how that is happening. If you own a piece of land for leisure activities, you have like the entire system in your own control. Unlike stock market, whereby you rely on the bank or you rely on the financier to determine or to manage everything. So it's a matter of you trusting that things don't go wrong. But Of course, in some occasions they go wrong and you have no control because everything is run by the system, and on the back end you don't have powers. You don't know anything that is happening on the back end. With real estate, you also get to limit the kind of fraud that is happening, because you see, as again I mentioned, you are in full control of everything that is happening. You see it on real time. So unlike, stock market, where on the back end someone can just corrupt the system and things go haywire, with real estate you're able to see and track the performance and everything that is happening on real time. So this is one of the biggest, one of the most things that trigger your comfort and ask you, will you be more comfortable when someone is running the system or when you're running the system? Because if you're more comfortable when you are in charge, then it means that the fraud cases, you are able to track and see them when they are happening on real time. On most occasions, you are able to avoid fraud cases. But when you come to stock market, then it's a little bit different, because at that point, you don't know what's happening. You'll only receive bad news. You're like, sorry, this has happened. And you have to deal with it at that point. There's nothing you can do. You don't have any system in place that is under your control that you can be able to track. So that is one of the things that maybe could trigger you to think about real estate more than the stock market. So what are the disadvantages of investing in real estate? In my own experience, the disadvantages are pretty much lower and the advantages are more. Of course, everything has advantages and disadvantages, but this one is just amazing. So it's a bit more engaging because you have to do everything. Remember when we talked about you being in control of everything? So now the disadvantage is that you have to do everything. So that means that you have to be hands-on on every time. Maybe let's say if you own an apartment, your caretaker is calling you that there is a sewage breakdown, there is water, lack of water, sufficient water that is, and also maybe there is no power and other things, and you have to pick those calls. You have to solve those issues. When you have a piece of land somewhere, maybe someone calls you, there's a neighbor who is encroaching your property, or something wrong is happening here, maybe your food crops are being swept away by the rains and other things, and you need to be hands-on. You need to go there and manage. So at that point, that's when you will feel you are more of having to engage yourself on almost everything, and that means you need your time and attention there all the time. And unlike stock, where you just buy your shares and just stay home and just let the management and the system run everything, so you're not bothered. So that is the other part. But anyway, if you wanted to be more involved in your investment, then that is a disadvantage you might want to deal with. In real estate, there are of course continued costs, depending on also the land and the location and what you're doing on it. For example, if you're owning a piece of land that is within a municipal county, or just within an area that is an urban area, you have some land rates that you need to keep paying within a given period. So that's a continued cost. Unlike shares in a stock market, you don't need to pay anything. Those are your shares. The only thing you're waiting is for dividends. So the discussion here is about the operational costs that you're going to incur on investing in real estate. And when we talk mostly about land, of course, most lands, especially if you're slightly out of the urban center, you don't pay land rates, especially when it's freehold land. Then that means this is less costly. So depending on the land, depending on the location, it also that disadvantage might just not be like cutting across on every real estate investment. That is for specific areas. Let's say if it's a building, of course you're paying taxes. If it's for a certain place where maybe the government is taxing you, then that is a continuous expense on your side. So I think those are the key things that you might notice with real estate investment in comparison with the stock market. So right into it, we talk about the stock market. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of stock market? Of course, the key one is that it is there is less hassle. Okay, the advantage is you're not literally being involved in everything. It's about how you look at it in the context that you're just seated at home and the company or the management, they are running everything for you. So for you, you just wait and get a feedback. So that is a bit quiet, and your money keeps growing. So less hassle, you're home and quiet. Another advantage of the stock market is that your profits can grow in just overnight, like within one night, the following day you're just on another level. And this of course purely relies on the development, or rather how fast the company is growing. But if the company is doing a business that is of much demand and the market is ready for it, then it means your dividends keep growing pretty fast. So therefore your profits are very high on a very short period. So that is one thing that you cannot compare with real estate, because real estate takes time. It might not just develop or change its value within a night. It might take a certain period, which needs you to be patient. But with the stock market, things change overnight. Stock exchange just happens like within every hour, every moment. There are money exchanging hands, and that means your shares keep earning more profit as time goes. But remember, the same thing that looks like an advantage can turn out to be a disadvantage, because if the profits if the market is not performing any better, it gets worse. Like now during this COVID-19 period, things have really changed, and the stock market is one of the most affected. People pulling out of selling their shares, and that means for you that if you have invested in many shares, they have less value. That throws you down in terms of now your profit margin at the end of the annual. And some companies, of course, have shut down, and that is something very terrible to happen to you overnight. So it is an advantage in terms of how much profit you can make overnight, but a disadvantage on how much loss you can make overnight. Another advantage of stock market compared to real estate investment, or rather market, is that with stock you can easily liquidate them very fast, like fast liquidation of your shares. Compared to real estate, you might not be able to sell your land or your property within a day or so. You might need a lot of follow-ups, a lot of site visits, and other people backing out of the transaction. But with the stock market, you can sell your shares anytime. You want to sell them today, you have a buyer tomorrow, and that's it. So that's one of the fastest things. You can be able to actually convert your shares into cash pretty fast compared to real estate, where the property will need a lot of processes like surveying, evaluation, transfer process of ownership, a lot of paperwork. So that you find stock market is doing better compared to real estate. One of the last thing I want to talk about on the advantages of stock is that it's pretty fast, like transferring or buying shares. There is no much paperwork, pretty fast. You just want them today and tomorrow you're buying. But when you talk about land, the processes involved are quite many. So that can be a tedious journey for someone who is maybe on transit. For example, nowadays most people are online, they are transacting online, and they want to do things right there, right then, for convenience purposes. Maybe you're on a move, you don't have all the time to go through the paperwork. So with stock market investing, it's just a matter of making the decision and you're on. You can just do that right from your phone, right from your home, at your comfort. But with real estate, you have to move around, you have to go to different offices, have paper signed, you have to go through a lot of formalities. So this is one of the tedious parts of real estate compared to stock market that could challenge someone to maybe think about, okay, I don't want to go through all that, let me just do something that is quick and fast. So there you go, stock market gives you that option. So let's talk about the disadvantages of buying stock market. Are you ready for it? But have you subscribed though? If you're not, just click that subscription button. I think one of the things that really talks me away from stock market is the way things change so fast. Yeah, one day you think you got this, the next thing you don't have it. And the whole concept here is that things change so fast with the stock market. And compared to real estate, there's a process, there's a timeline. It might not be within a month or 2 months, but with stock market, it changes within like a flick of a second. Things are different. Today this is the value, tomorrow the value is no longer there. It's either too low or nowhere. Because when you look at even like the COVID-19 situation, things changed overnight. Like within a night, things are different. People who owned shares in different companies had to sell their shares even at a loss, so that in case the company is closing down, you at least saved part of your money. But when you think of it with real estate, that's a different concept, because land or your property will just stay there regardless of what is happening in the market. The only thing that can be is that the company or that are the business that was having a space, let's say in your building, they vacate, then that means your revenue or your income will stagnate or go lower at that time. But in a short period, maybe it can pick up. But that is a situation of if. But now the stock market is completely different. Things are bad, everybody pulls out, you remain in, and you have nothing, no profit. So overnight, stock gone. So the stock market it shakes very fast, and that is not something you might want to really throw in your money, because you're hoping and crossing fingers that tomorrow will be as good as today, living on a daily basis. Stock market is influenced by pre-existing conditions. Like I just gave you an example of COVID-19, which is the most famous example right now in 2020. Such things influence a lot on the stock market. But you realize with real estate, such things don't really affect as much, because real estate, just it's your property remains where it is for quite some time, until maybe people are no longer able to completely buy property or invest in real estate. So that means with the stock market, the way things are affecting it very fast or within a given period, I think that's something that might worry you a bit, because you don't know if tomorrow we might be having another pandemic that could be worse, God forbid, and that means so much in terms of how much shares you own in a certain company. So the way things outside here affect the stock market is crazy. There is no electricity, there is no water or other things around, or people are not able to travel. Remember, the airline, one of the busiest industry that helps the stock market stay par. If that changes, it affects your shares. So there you go. So Gabrielta, what's my parting shot here? With real estate, you realize that your value keeps increasing every other day. Things keep remaining almost like the graph keeps going up and up and up and up. But on stock market, it's fluctuating depending on the day, the pre-existing conditions, and other external reasons. So, but it's my suggestion. Of course, I'm a realtor. I would want you to invest in real estate. But of course, the decision is yours. So let me know, what do you think works best for you? I'd love to hear from you. Leave your comment on the comment section. And remember to like, subscribe, and share this video so that we are able to engage more. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you.